Well, to say it's been a big weekend in news would be an understatement. Victorians have been given the shattering news that they are stuck in lockdown well into September, with the Andrews government setting some tough standards to be met. Meanwhile, the border games go on. Palaszczuk has been accused of double standards over the AFL Grand Final, and Mark McGowan has dismissed National Cabinet and decided Western Australia is closed indefinitely. Joining me now, One Nation leader Pauline Hanson. Pauline, this has turned into a real mess, hasn't it?
It certainly has, Peter, and I really feel for these people that are actually, their businesses are destroyed, and we keep going over this and over this. And, you know, in some ways I really do blame the federal government by keeping JobKeeper and JobSeeker going. It doesn't put pressure on the premiers of all these states to open up their borders, because people then are not putting pressure on them because they don't have jobs to go back to. So the government is propping up these people, and in turn, hey, thank you very much, I'm getting paid more now than what I did when I was actually working, so I'm quite happy to take the money and I can stay at home.
Now, Pauline, you've got plenty of candidates running in the upcoming Queensland state election, and of course it's very clear that the Palaszczuk government are making this a referendum on the way in which they've handled COVID, and obviously there'll be a lot of people who will give them a tick for the health benefits and the fact that they've kept the state reasonably free of COVID-19. But then, of course, there's the other aspects, and I'm talking about the border restrictions. I'm talking about the exemption anomalies. I'm talking about the mental health aspect. I'm talking about the agricultural exemptions that are not being applied to Queensland farmers. Are you getting a sense that the tide is turning against the way in which this government is handling this crisis?
I do, Peter, when I go and talk to people, because I think people are starting to realise, I can understand the scare factor with us, and as I've said, there's a lot of people that have died with COVID, but not necessarily because of it. We know that it does affect people with respiratory problems, heart problems and other underlying health issues, but we haven't been told the truth about these deaths that have happened in nursing homes, where it's far down, about 1,000 less deaths this year than what it was last year in the nursing homes. But they've said, you know, all these deaths have been because of COVID, and it's not the truth. Now, I want people to realise the fact that Anastasia Palaszczuk and the Labor government and what they've done in Queensland, the Vegetation Management Act, the reef policy that they have, they haven't worried about water security in the nation, and then you have the influx of the number of public servants that we have. That in itself, we can't afford this. We won't have the money, and we're in debt for about $100 billion. So I just hope people will be realistic about it. Do they really want to put her in? If she carries on like this about the borders now prior to election, what is she going to be like after the election and total control in the parliament?
Pauline, I know you're really passionate about water. I know you're out and about, you're talking to farmers and irrigators all the time. The Bradfield scheme is an absolute cracker, and I know that both you and the LNP have suggested that you'll go very strongly on that. But the government have come out today and said that they will, after 15 years of waiting, they will assess the feasibility of a so-called Bradfield scheme. Do you think they're fair income?
No, they're not fair income, because there was a feasibility study done by the Snowy Mountain Engineering Corporation in 2018 which approved the project to actually go ahead. So that's just absolute rubbish. It's playing into the hands of those people who want the Bradfield scheme, thinking, oh, well, Labor's going to do something about it. No, they're not. And I'm putting pressure on both the LNP, and I don't believe the LNP have the heart or the will to actually go ahead with this. Again, it's all the same old rhetoric prior to election. The only ones who are serious about it, and I do believe Bob Katter will actually see it through, and definitely One Nation for this project to go ahead. You know, so, you know, when the Palaszczuk government is talking about putting someone from the university, James Cook University, oh, they're the same people who shut Peter Ridd down from speaking the truth, and they want to put in the Farmers Federation or someone from the farming sector to actually be involved in whether it's feasible to have this. Hang on a minute, you know. I just said to you, the Snowy Mountain Engineering Corporation have done a feasibility study on it. It's ready to go. just build it at a cost of $15 to $20 billion to waterproof and give water security to this nation, not only Queensland, but also the southern states. So I'm telling you, the only ones that will see this through, and I give the people my word, as long as I am in a position that I will keep pushing this till it actually starts and we do something about it.
Pauline, I see Adani are getting quite strong in their condemnation of what they call eco-terrorists. They've taken a particular fellow, a guy called Ben Pennings, to court. They've accused him of trying to sabotage their project and trying to get lots of that particular project caught up in the courts and stop it from proceeding. Do you believe Adani have got a point here?
Of course they got a point here. They went through 13 years, Peter, in the courts to actually, state their case that the mine should go ahead. You have those people, environmental issues. It was proven it won't affect the water table. They don't take water out of the Artesian Basin. It is a project that we get royalties in Queensland. It props up and pays for the schools, the hospitals, and it's very viable for us to have especially the number of jobs that this actually creates in Queensland. It's very important to Queenslanders. Coal mining, I'm all for it. I'm not against coal mining. We need coal for thermal heating. We also need it to make the steel that we sell the coking coal to other countries, and especially China, to actually make the steel. It's the best coking coal in the world. I get so annoyed that why these people are left to have their protests. As far as I'm concerned, send in the police, send in the army, drag them away, because their protest only disrupts business. We get a bad name that people don't want to come down here and do business in Australia. I think it's ridiculous. It's proven. Let the mine go ahead. It is so beneficial to Queensland. If we didn't have the royalties from the mines and the jobs that it creates, we'd be in one hell of a state, because now, under the Palaszczuk government, over $100 billion in debt. Why isn't she handing down a budget prior to the election?
Good point. Good point. Why isn't she? I mean, there was a mini budget, not even a mini budget. There was a forecast put out today, forecast to reach over $100 billion, the debt, by the middle of next year. And yet the royalties are up $1.5 billion on coal.
Look, Peter, she's just propping up the state. We're employing more public servants, and I understand since she's been in, 57,000 public servants. Average pay, $100,000 per public servant. She's just put on another 2,900 public servants. So that means every person, if you're driving down the road, okay, you pass 20 cars, the 21st car is a public servant in that car. We can't afford this. And we are so much run by bureaucrats. So every person that's running behind Anastasia Palaszczuk and their little notepad and all the rest of it, they're actually costing us huge amounts of money. We are over-governed by bureaucrats in this state, and we can't afford it as a nation if we're actually going to keep the viability in the state to provide the services that we need to the people. So I want people to really think clearly about this.
Pauline Hanson, great to see you tonight. Thanks for joining us on Sky News Across Australia.
Thanks, Peter. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.